All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to reInvent. How's your morning? Awesome. All right, today we're standing at a turning point, an inflection point that AI drive and then changing the whole analytics world. So in today's session, we're exactly talking about how we are building a robust data architecture to adapt to that world, to power your enterprise AI and then BI workload. My name is Emily Zhu. I'm a senior product manager from Amazon Quick Suite. Together with me on the stage will be my colleague Thomas Schlosser, solution architecture manager from AWS, and our guest speaker Kevin Kamau from Basware as the director of product manager. Let's get started. All right, this is where we are headed for our agenda. We will first talk about the big shift of how we are building a data foundation in the AI world. And then I will introduce our new platform of AI workloads called Amazon Quick Suite. Then we'll dive into the structured data, which is still the core of our AI workload. My colleague Thomas will talk about how we expand it to integrate unstructured data and the applications as the data sources. At last, Kevin will talk about an exciting use cases of how Basware built that foundations in practice. All right, let's dive in. Since the invention of the dashboards from 20 years ago, BI always has been in the center of analytics world. People using BI to build insights and then making informed decisions. However, the rise of AI technology changes the whole architecture. Now we want to see how we adapt to that. In the BI-driven architecture, people always start with a predefined dashboard and then questions. The metrics, logics, are always defined by human. And the result of those BI dashboards are used by human as well. They interpret it, making decisions. And all those computing are defined to power that. But that computing is powered to enable human use. So it's fine to be batched. However, the AI technology makes all those transition for the technology. AI need to use an open-ended, multimodal, and then dynamic reasoning. AI need to understand the semantics of your data context, not just the data itself, but the meaning of your business. The agent will need to generating and executing the analyses instead of people interpreting the results. So the computing to power all those capabilities really need to be high scale, low latency, and then real time. So with that context in mind, let's see what we can carry over from the current BI foundation architecture. We probably will still relying on the existing data storage and the schemas. Enterprise entities, identities, access controls are still super critical. We still need to rely on the data pipelines, catalog, lineages to enable trust and then governance. Curated business definition and the metrics are super important still because it evolves as companies define them. Last but not least, dashboard will not disappear because that is still for what human to communicate and then to share their insights and then decisions. As we're stepping into the AI world, there are a lot of portions of our architecture need to evolve. First one is your data should not be siloed. You will need to connect all your enterprise's data so AI can inform across all the business and systems. Similarly, your knowledge should not be localized. You need to define some centralized semantic knowledge graph so that AI can generate consistent context across business and systems. Workflow, as we said, doesn't work if they're batched. We need to build continuous event-driven data pipelines. Governance should be really scalable. Instead of manual defining user access controls, we need some automated policy-driven controls. Last but not least, analyses are not just for human to trigger. We need to build some workflows that really automate it, and then using the AI agents to help driving the workflows. With that context in mind, I would like to introduce Amazon Quick Suite. I would like to do a quick survey of our audience. How many of you have heard or used Amazon Quick Suite? All right, this is awesome. This is a great start. So we launched in October the 9th of Amazon Quick Suite. What is it? It is a set of agentic teammates that will access all your enterprise's data, quickly answer your questions at work, and help you turn these answers into actions. Let's see what Quick Suite can do. It provides a series of AI workloads and capabilities targeting on different use cases. First one, we have a native chatbot experience to provide you conversational experience that you can ask questions against your enterprise data, and then you can also customize your agent, build on top of it to share with your teammates. We have researchers that will allow you to do very deep dive analyses and then be able to generate and then export a report to share with other people. We have QuickSight as the core BI capability that we enhance with AI technologies, help you to build even more beautiful dashboards and analytics. Now, given the first three, we have two capabilities that will help you to build your workflow more automatically. The first one is called Flow. It is targeting on the non-technical business user to be able to automate your flow for your repetitive works and then predefine some steps to replace the time-consuming manual work. The next one is called Automate. That one is targeted on more complex problems and enable organizations to transform the entire business process into an automated workflow. So those are the AI capabilities that we offer from Quick Suite. Behind the scene, this is the data foundation that unlock those. Click into the data foundation, there are major two layers. The bottom layer are the data layer that we will allow you to access the world knowledge, also access your structured data, unstructured data, your uploaded files, and then your actions across your third-party applications. On top of the data layer is the governance piece of it. We provide access control, guardrails, responsible AIs to govern and then secure your usage of data. Now with that, let's dive into how structured data unlock your workload. It still is the core fuel for AI workloads. And then that is mostly focusing on the tabular form of your data in uploaded files or data sets, and then how we access control the usage of those data. So let's first take a look at how the data flow look like when users start their journey with the structured data sources. You bring your data sources. Your data sources can come from your database, data warehouses, data lakes. It can come from your applications. It can from your local or S3 file imports. When you want to use them in Amazon Quick Suite, you connect through a governed connector, create the data sources. After that, you can define the schema of your data and then create the so-called data set. That is the queryable object in Amazon Quick Suite. You can create a data set that be able to directly run query in your SQL sources, or you can give data to Spice, which is the proprietary data engine of Amazon Quick Suite that provides you high performance, low cost, and auto-scale capability. After you define the data sets, you'll be able to author them into a dashboard or a topic. In this step, you'll add more semantics and then business context to them to get it prepared for your AI workload. After that, when users coming in and enjoy the applications of Amazon Quick Suite, your data is behind all those applications, including scenarios, stories, chat agent, flows, and then researches. So having that in mind, let's take a look at what are the deliverables that we delivered this year to enhance these foundations and then make it even powerful. First, let's start with the core of our analytics stack, the Spice engine. We have done a whole re-architecture with the open source Apache Iceberg and Apache Spark this year to enhance powerful Spice engine. Given that capability, we are providing a much larger data set size, double the data size from 1 TB, 1 billion row previously, to 2 TB, 2 billion rows. Now you can enjoy a much larger data set ingested into Spice. At the same time, we're improving the performance of Spice engine by increasing as much as 2.5 times of the ingestion speed and then query speed. Now, getting data into QuickSight makes Quick Suite is much easier. We launched the reimagined data preparation experience this year, allow you to be able to see a whole step-by-step data preparation of your data transformations. You don't need any code for SQL. You don't need to write Python or SQL. Instead, you can see a map of step-by-step by just click and drag and drop to manage your data transformation. We also allow append, aggregation, pivot, unpivot, and then list ag as the new transformation capabilities. The collaborations is more easier because now we're allowing 10 levels of using already created data set as your data source to of your data. Instead of only working on the capabilities within the Quick Suite, we also do a lot of integrations with the whole AWS ecosystem. The biggest one that we launched this year was the integration between Amazon Quick Suite and Amazon SageMaker Unified Studio. Now, if you're landing in Amazon SageMaker Unified Studio and then manage your data, you will be able to transfer into Amazon Quick Suite by just one click of creating a data set from SageMaker Unified Studio. The instance between the two systems having corresponding concept, so you can easily switch back and forth between the two systems if you want to manage your data. Last but not least, the data governance layer is being more comprehensive. Previously, you'll be able to share your asset through the folders, through the restricted folders. You'll be able to log in using your IAM roles and then creating data sources of Redshift and Athena. You'll be able to create row-level security, column-level security in Amazon Quick Suite. And then this year, we allow this whole integration of lake formation and enable trusted identity propagation. Through that capability, when users log in Amazon Quick Suite, their identity will be propagated, and then the rules, the fine-grained access control rules that you define in lake formation will be automatically inherited when you are using Quick in a very governed and then access-controlled way. All right. By looking at those capabilities with a strong foundation for structured data, now I would like to invite Thomas on the stage for the next section.
Thank you, Emily. Thanks. So, as Emily was just saying, and as we've seen, now that how we can build a scalable data foundation on top of your structured data, I would like to ask each of you to just think about the last time you had to make a big decision, a really big decision. And now take a few seconds to think about what type of information you needed to make that decision. And I would kindly ask you to raise your hand in case you needed additional information. For example, information from other sources like your company document repository or applications that you use in your day-to-day life. Can you just, I see plenty of hands raised, and I think that just shows how important it is to go beyond structured data and to build a data foundation that integrates all of the relevant data sources across your entire business. So next we're going to look at how QuickSuite allows you to establish a holistic view across your entire information ecosystem, also integrating the document and content repositories as well as the enterprise applications and services you're already using. As a very first one, we look at the document and content repositories, such as the Confluences, SharePoints, and Google Drives that you already use within your organizations. QuickSuite allows you to integrate those through a concept called knowledge base. A knowledge base is a searchable repository of information coming from external sources. So what does it mean and what is a knowledge base doing? A knowledge base is an organized indexed collection of documents coming from those external sources that is optimized for generative AI-powered information retrieval and question answering. It provides the large language models with a rich contextual intelligence to be able to provide trustworthy and accurate AI experiences. And once they have been created, a configurable automatic synchronization mechanism keeps them up to date, and the built-in access control mechanisms of QuickSuite allow you to also configure which user has access to information from which knowledge base. To tap into your organization's knowledge coming from OneDrive, Confluence, S3, and more, the very first step you have to do is to create and set up a data access integration, where you would configure the integration specific details, such as the connection or account information, as well as the authentication required to access the system. On top of that, you can build one or multiple knowledge bases to make that content or specific content also available for AI analysis. So in this step, you would choose which content to include from the external source. You can additionally also influence the indexing behavior, define the refresh schedule, and manage access permissions. Once that's done, QuickSuite will process the content and adds it to the Quick Index. QuickSuite capabilities, such as chat agents, flows, and research, will then be able to access the content once indexing is completed. And as users interact with the agents will be able to run semantic search on top of the knowledge bases as required and combine it with the information coming from other sources, such as the structured data, web, or uploaded files, to provide the most relevant answers. Let's see it now also in action. So in this demo, we are an employee who would like to understand how many vacation days we have per year. When we ask now the chat agent without pointing it to company-specific knowledge, it will use web search and general world knowledge from the large language model, and will just tell us where this information can typically be found in. So not very useful, right? So let's go ahead and now add an integration to our policy documents coming from Google Drive. So we go to the integration section and add a new data access integration for Google Drive, where we first pick the account that we want to use and provide QuickSuite the permissions to access the files in Google Drive, which kind of concludes the creation of the data access integration. Let's go ahead and create our first knowledge base on top of that, where we pick now the folder, the policies folder, and give it a name. Let's call it policy documents. And as we create that knowledge base, QuickSuite goes now ahead and starts the indexing. And once indexing is completed, we can open chat again and repeat the question from earlier. Now this time we will see that the chat agent is running a semantic search on top of the leave policy document coming and originating from Google Drive. And it will tell us that we are entitled to 20 vacation days per calendar year. So as just seen, creating knowledge bases within QuickSuite is a great mechanism to improve the relevance and accuracy of an agent's answers. However, some of you might have already built indexes in other places. QuickSuite allows you also to connect to external indexes, such as the Amazon Q index, through a concept called Bring Your Own Index. With Bring Your Own Index, you don't have to recreate your index or upload the same data again, but instead you point to the existing index to bring that one in and leverage this within QuickSuite. And the knowledge bases that you build on top of that can be used and shared exactly in the same way as the knowledge bases that live within the Quick Index, all while maintaining still the same security and access control from the external index. So in case of the Amazon Q Index, QuickSuite users will only be able to access the content from the data source of the Q Index that the users would have permission to access in that data source, if you configure it that way. But what if we need real-time access to data or applications in external systems? This is where actions come into picture. Action connectors within QuickSuite allow users and agents to invoke real-time calls to perform actions in external systems. So by leveraging those actions, agents will be able to pull information to answer users' natural language chat requests, automate workflows, send notifications, or trigger processes in connected applications. Action connectors basically support two types of actions: on-demand actions and actions in automated workflows. The on-demand actions execute immediately as users triggers them. So typically use cases would be to create a Jira ticket or sending a notification on Slack or updating Salesforce records. Actions in automated workflows, on the other hand side, execute as when they are scheduled or in response to specific triggers. When it comes to the authentication method for those actions, they also slightly differ. So for the on-demand actions, it requires user-level authentication methods, such as managed three-legged OAuth or custom user-based authentication for scenarios that require organizational control or custom configuration. The automated workflows and actions there, they require service-level authentication. So you can use methods such as API keys or two-legged authentication. Similarly, the permission model also differs in the similar way. So with on-demand actions, it leverages personal access permissions, which are tied to the user's identity in the target system. For automated workflows, actions follow a service-level permissions. What both have in common is that, again, you can, in QuickSuite, leverage the access control mechanisms to define which user or group has access to execute specific actions. QuickSuite supports a wide range of popular enterprise applications, such as Asana for project management, Outlook for email, and many more. Also, if you have custom applications, you can connect to those using custom connectors that leverage either REST APIs, Open API specification, or the Model Context Protocol, or MCP, which is a standardized way to connect AI systems to external tools or data sources. The first-party action connectors that allow you to connect to services such as Amazon Bedrock Agent, Comprehend, and S3 allow agents to execute actions on top of AWS resources. For all of them to be able to make them available to users or agents in QuickSuite, the first step what you have to do is to create an action connector. Depending on the action type, you will provide the integration-specific connection, VPC, and authentication details. And then on-demand actions that can be used in chat agents, flows, or on top of dashboard visuals are those interactive operations that users trigger and hence require at their first use user sign-in. The system level and background operations such as automate runs and threshold alerts on the other hand side don't require that step because those would be leveraging the system authentication as discussed earlier. Coming back to our previous demo, let's now also integrate our HR system that the employees use to manage their time off requests. As our HR system offers an API that provides an open API specification, we first start by navigating in the integration section to the Actions tab, to then add a new open API specification integration, where we select the schema to make the structure of the API visible to QuickSuite. Then we give it a name. Let's call it HR System Integration, as well as a description. And then we can choose between the two different authentication methods. We choose user authentication, because we want to use it in chat. Then we provide the integration, the authentication details here, get an overview of all the actions that we make now available to the agent, can share it with other users and groups. And once the action is created, the action connector, we can open chat again. And now we can also ask questions such as, how many vacation days do I have left this year? And once we ask the question, we will see how chat agent now identifies that there's the HR system integration that it wants to leverage. So it asks us at the first use now to sign in. Given that we didn't sign in beforehand, it asks us now to provide username and password. Once that's completed, we will see how the agent now uses the get time off balance API to then tell us that we have 7 vacation days remaining for this year. So let's go ahead and ask it to book now next Monday, the Monday after reInvent off. So it will use web search to figure out when reInvent takes place, and then is using the create API and ask us first to review and validate that it's the 8th of December that we want to take off. So once we submit this form, the agent goes ahead and is booking the time off on our behalf. And then we get a quick summary of what it executed for us. When you build your data foundations, you also always should have in mind how it enables collaboration at scale. Emily mentioned earlier that we have folders, which is a hierarchical organization that allows you to share analytics assets at scale. In addition, spaces serve as a collaborative workspace that allow users to create dedicated collections of data assets, files, and actions to reduce data silos. As such, spaces function as custom knowledge hub for specific domains and teams. And as they are being shared with users, each person will be able to access and collaborate within the space based on the access permissions that they have. The spaces, when being applied on or used in agents, provide a data boundary for those agents to make sure that they have the right context and operate within that defined context to provide the most relevant answers and interactions. Let's now also go ahead and create a space for our HR domain. So we navigate on the left side to the spaces and click to create a new space. We first give it a name. Let's call it HR space. And then we could now upload files or add existing resources. So let's go ahead and add our policy document, knowledge base, as well as the HR system integration that we created earlier. Additionally, we also add now the structured data. Let's add a topic about employee data, which includes the new hire start dates, as well as a dashboard about our staff schedules and holidays. Once that's done, we can open chat again, and by default, it will now automatically open in the context of that HR space. And we can ask a more complicated task, like book 5 days of vacation in December when no new hire starts so that we get the longest uninterrupted break. What the agent is now doing, it's using the resources from this particular space, looks for the new hire start dates from the employee data, the time off balance we have from the HR system, and makes us a suggestion. So based on the new hire start dates, which are on 1st, 9th, and 22nd of December, it asks us if it should book on our behalf the 15th to 19th of December off, because that would give us 9 days of uninterrupted break. If we confirm with yes, we will similarly, as we've seen it beforehand, have to quickly validate that this is what we want to do. Once we submit it, it goes ahead and books those 5 days of vacation for us in December. So now that we've seen how you can bring structured data, unstructured data, and applications together and put it to work in your day-to-day life in the new agentic AI world, let's hear directly from one of our customers. Let me invite Kevin Kamau from Basware on stage, who's going to walk us through their journey of building a scalable data product on top of Amazon Quick Suite.
All right, super. Thanks, Thomas. Hey, everyone. My name is Kevin. I lead our data AI products at Basware. So to get us started, and actually it's a story that I'll be telling, so it's really a customer story. Who is Basware? Right, so Basware essentially is the world's leading invoice lifecycle management provider. we help enterprises automate the financial supply chain. And at the center of this is something called AP, or accounts payable. So what accounts payable is, this is a team that receives, validates, routes, and pays invoices. So essentially ensuring that businesses keep on operating. With this, every supplier, every purchase order, every workflow will essentially cross AP. And what that means, it is very, very operationally critical, and at the same time produces one of the richest data troves that you will see in the finance enterprise. As Basware, we actually are very, very honored and privileged to have a really, really rich data set from our customer base. So we connect over 20 million suppliers with our customers. We've processed over 10 trillion in spend through our system. And that essentially is just to give you an idea of how much data we have had in place. Now, Basware itself has actually been around for a very long time, over 40 years. Interestingly, or as a note here, we actually invented the invoice automation space. So we were the first ones to bring to the market something called invoice automation. And we've been in this space for well over 4 decades, right? So since 1985. More recently, moving to the cloud, and in the 2020s then getting owned by a private equity. Now, I've mentioned this a few times, that through this journey and through the business that we do, there comes an enormous data footprint. Billions of invoices, trillions of spend, and thousands of global customers, millions of suppliers globally. For us, the opportunity here was rather obvious. If we could unlock this data, it would essentially give our finance teams or enterprises globally superpowers. So let's take one step back. Our journey with embedded actually started in 2016. And when we started, the product was really, really well recognized in the market. So our embedded analytics product was really well recognized in the market, very, very highly praised. And I joined Basware in 2017. However, and I'll take a pause here. When I joined Basware in 2017, this was August 7th, and I remember on August 9th, I was put in front of a customer. It was a 3-hour call, or 3-hour meeting, and after the meeting, I went straight home and I locked myself. I didn't cry, but I did not want to go back to work. And why was that? This was the reason. This is all I heard the customer say that day. And it was really an awakening moment for me, because you put yourself in my shoes, you have started right in another company, and you're expecting things to be all good and dandy, and this is what you hear. Not happy day scenario, right? Now, I met a lot of other customers over the next few years, and there seemed to be a recurring theme here. The recurring theme was the AP teams, and when I say AP here, it's not action point, it's accounts payable. So let's just to clarify that. So AP teams here were really struggling to get the data that they needed, to get insights that were actually driving their business. There was limited visibility from the product that they were getting. They couldn't clearly see where time was being spent by their teams. They could not identify process bottlenecks. The main issue was they had data, and they had a lot of it, but there was no intelligence. They did not know what to do with it. So decision making was slow, and improvements were essentially just guesswork. Now, with all of this, I went back to the team and asked the team, let's take a stop and really, really, reevaluate this whole scenario. What is really going on? And it came down to these 4 issues here. The first one, our analytics stack, old analytics stack, simply wasn't built for what we were trying to achieve. So we had built our embedded product on top of our production database. That's limiting a lot of data that we were able to access, but also limiting innovation quite massively. The product itself had become somewhat too complex, right? There are a lot of people here, I can see, I would guess data people. We have a common nuance, which is data people build products as though they're going to be used by data people. And that quite often leads to a misalignment because our users are not necessarily data people, they're business people. And these are folks who are used to the world's greatest BI tool, Excel. I didn't say that out loud, but you know what I mean, right? So there was a disconnect here, right? We had built a very bespoke product that wasn't really working for our customers. And all of this led us to a point where what we needed was not just better dashboards. We really needed to hit a reset. We really needed to ask ourselves, what do we need to do that we enable our customers achieve their business outcomes? And the shift was not a small one, right? We realized it's not a cosmetic update, and we had to reframe the whole problem. The market was demanding speed, consistency, and embedded intelligence, as well as AI readiness. At the same time, our strategy, based on these two, so we have the customer sentiment and we know how the market is evolving, our strategy became quite simple. What we needed to do was three things: build a governed, scalable, multi-tenant data platform, essentially reshift our whole architecture, crystallize the value proposition. So who are we building for and for what purpose? I should have mentioned this in the previous slide, but one of the things that we saw is that we had built a product that was not being used for what we had built it for, right? So you build very, very bespoke dashboards, but at the end of, when you show a customer that, the next thing they ask you is, can I download that data to Excel? I'm sure you've heard that before, right? So really understanding what the use case was and building for that. So crystallizing the value proposition. And last but not least, designing a future-proof architecture that allowed us to actually innovate and scale. Innovation was super, super paramount for us, especially considering, as I said, we had a lot of data and where the market was shifting, especially in our domain as such. Now, this is where the partnership with AWS came in. And it was really, I wouldn't say a no-brainer, but it was a myriad of things that we actually considered. And I would just highlight a few here, right? So serverless architecture, that was a huge one for us. It gave us the possibility to scale without cost pain, where we needed to process hundreds of terabytes on a daily basis. Governance, finance data, and that goes without saying, demands strict tenancy separation, strict user authentication, as well as auditability. And embedding, QuickSight gave us, QuickSight, which is a part of the Quick Suite now, gave us a way to push intelligence into the Basware experience without actually having to reinvent the platform itself. Now, this was a no-brainer, right? That we're going ahead with AWS. So what did we actually build? This is what we built. Okay, yes, this is what we built. We built three things. First of all, a unified enriched analytics grade data foundation across, give or take, about 1,000 tenants, so 1,000 customers, with consistent KPI models baked in. We have a dedicated governance layer that enforces tenant isolation, row-level security, KPI consistency, as well as compliance. Secondly, we built a fully automated multi-tenant pipeline, around about 6,800, 7,000 as of last week, data sets being refreshed daily, about 26 terabytes processed on each cycle, with the largest data set being about half a terabyte. And thirdly, we built a deployment engine using Lambda and QuickSight APIs, where we publish and deploy around about 30,000 dashboards globally, and that list keeps on increasing. All of this takes about 17 seconds to publish 19 dashboards, so per tenant as such. On top of all of this sits QuickSight, which powers the intelligence, right? So we have dashboards that are embedded directly in the AP workflows, Spice that is powering sub-second performance from the data sets, and then within QuickSight, we have Q that enables natural language analysis, machine learning-based insights, and etc. Now, the biggest unlock from this exercise wasn't the dashboards. It wasn't building new pretty dashboards. No, it was really how we transformed that raw accounts payable data, AP data, into analytics-grade intelligence. We essentially unified the entire invoice lifecycle data, enriched it, and created consistent KPI models and enabled segmentation across our customers, different industries, suppliers, etc. Now, this became a very powerful foundation, something that we'll take a look after we see exactly what we built.
Basware Insights. Unlock the power of your AP data. Basware helps organizations transform AP data into actionable insights, enabling smarter, faster decisions that drive better business outcomes. With Basware Insights, data is accessible to everyone vested in AP: CFO, AP manager, shared services center leader, as well as AP team members. This solution evolves with your needs, addressing these 4 key questions. How can I track and enhance business outcomes using my AP KPIs? Basware Insights connects the dots between your KPIs and business outcomes, ensuring your AP processes are efficient and aligned with your broader strategic goals. How do I quickly get the answers I need? With robust ad hoc reporting capabilities and GenAI-powered insights, you can simply ask a business question and get real-time data-driven answers, no technical expertise required. How can I securely access my AP data? Our Data Access API ensures secure, seamless access to your critical AP data, so you can trust that your information is always protected. What's happening in my AP processes in real time? Operational AP Insights provide real-time visibility into daily operations, helping you stay on top of activities and react swiftly when needed. GenAI that transforms how your organization works with data. Simply ask a question and get real-time insights. And you have a recipe for best-in-class finance operations. With Basware Insights, realize the full value of your AP solution. Now, it all just happens.
All right. This is my favorite part. It's actually not what we built as such. Well, I like that too, but this is my favorite part. It's actually what this has enabled for customers. And I have 2 numbers here, numbers that I like to talk about a lot. You know, these numbers are is essentially what we've been able to achieve with QuickSight. Our development cycle has essentially reduced by about 90%. We are able to ship enhancements and features to our customers within a matter of weeks, when previously it took 6 to 9 months. At the same time, the time it takes for a customer to get insight has significantly reduced. And this is where it really matters most, right? The customer experience. So there's no more waiting, no exporting, no manual reconciliation for our customers. And because everything is embedded, AP teams will get, or accounts payable teams, get the insights directly within their workflow. Now, I did talk about when I started Basware in 2017 and the sentiment I got. Now, 2024, last year, around about the same time, we actually launched our product to the market. And during the launch, there was a bunch of customers seated there. And one of the customers raised their hands and they asked me this. This is what they said. They said, in 30 years of building some really cool cars, we have never seen a product as Basware, as that product. This was a profound moment for us, because what we had essentially done is transformed completely how our customers used to consume data and how they consume data moving forward. Now, as we knew that's when we had built something special and the foundation was set, then what is next? We are on a journey, and what we have done so far is lay the foundation with embedded intelligence. We are looking at expanding that with predictive workflows, simulations, forecasting, etc. Now, ultimately, our goal here is to deliver personalized, proactive accounts payable, where AI doesn't just describe what happened, it recommends what to do next, and in certain cases, within certain guardrails, actually takes an action. Why accounts payable? A recent study done with Financial Times reveals that 75% of CFOs actually want to increase their investments within accounts payable in AI. And 85% of CFOs also see a really huge return on investment within accounts payable. Accounts payable is the ideal place for AI to play, right? It's a linear process with a lot of manual repetitive tasks and really, really good data that we can leverage. how we are looking at essentially providing this is by embedding AI within our platform, right? So we call this Invoice AI, where we don't build AI externally outside of our system, but it's built within the workflow, essentially augmenting and enhancing how accounts payable essentially execute the process. With that said, what does it mean then? QuickSuite. So far, with our users, for our users, we have been able to, and you did see a bit of this, with the queue capabilities, we have been able to ask or to enable our customers to ask two fundamental questions. What happened? When did it happen? So, what were the invoices sent by supplier XYZ? What was the value of those invoices? Now, that's good. That's information. But fundamentally, where we want to take this, and we're really looking forward to, is answering these particular questions. Why did it happen? What should I do to fix it? What if I change something? How would that impact our processes or business? And ultimately, baking this in together with the actions, right? So really having AI execute certain flows within certain guardrails for our end users. It's a really exciting time for us as we move ahead. To wrap this up, what we set out to do was to essentially reimagine what analytics could do for finance and especially accounts payable. What we built was more than a platform. It is really a foundation, a data foundation and a solid foundation that will drive transformation. And for me, it's super, super exciting because the journey doesn't end here. It's just the beginning. Thank you. I'll hand over back to Thomas to take us to the next step.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for sharing this insightful story. And I'm as excited as you to see how the new AI capabilities will empower you and your customers going forward. Having focused in today's session mostly on the data foundation and integration side of QuickSuite, you've likely realized that there's so much more to explore and learn. In the coming days, you will have the opportunity to join plenty of sessions and workshops across the next reInvent days to learn more about different set of use cases and all the different capabilities that QuickSuite can offer. Additionally, I would highly encourage you to also stop by at one of our booths in the AWS Village in the Expo area, where you can see additional demos of some of the other capabilities, as well as discuss your questions and use cases with one of our experts. I can also highly recommend you to check out the QuickSuite community that provides you access to hundreds of learning resources, events, and much more. With that, I would like to thank you, first of all, for your attention today, and kindly ask you to fill out the session survey in the mobile app. In case you have questions, we will be sticking around here. Wishing you a great rest of the week. Enjoy reInvent, and thanks again.